My name is Finn Mercer. I don't normally tell this story in detail. If I ever mention it, I usually just say that something weird happened to me on the New York subway. And after that, I left the city. Most people laugh when they hear that. They say, things like that happened in New York. And honestly, they're not completely wrong. In New York, you see something strange almost every day. Someone yelling for no reason on a platform. A man asleep on the train while somehow still staring directly at you. A stranger starting a conversation with you like the two of you have known each other for years. After a while, all of that starts to feel normal. But what happened to me, that wasn't normal. It has been 4 years since that night. I don't live in New York anymore. I live in Portland, Maine now, and I work at a small bookstore. It's quiet here at night. The streets get empty, but not in the same way New York gets empty. Here, if something moves, you can usually tell what it is. And I like that. But sometimes, when I wake up in the morning, for the first few seconds, I still think about that train, the last car, the black work bag, and that man, the one who said my name and address like he had known me for a long time. I was 29 when it happened. I was living in Brooklyn, near Green Avenue, in an old apartment building. 4th floor, apartment 4B. The building was old, and the hallway always smelled like paint and damp wood. The elevator was broken most of the time, so walking up the stairs had become part of my daily routine. My roommate was Leah. She worked at a cafe and was also taking a baking course. Our schedules almost never lined up. Sometimes we would go 3 days without properly seeing each other. She also stayed at her boyfriend's place a lot. I didn't have a problem with that. I wasn't a very social person anyway. I worked near the financial district at a printing company called Precision Print Solutions. From the outside, it looked like a normal print shop. But inside, we handled sensitive paperwork, legal files, medical records, insurance documents, court paperwork. Things that could seriously damage someone's life if they ended up in the wrong hands. Phones weren't allowed on the production floor. Every order had a record. Every employee scanned their badge to get inside. There were cameras. Documents were kept in locked cabinets. There was always the sound of machines running, the smell of toner in the air, and stacks of paper, shipping labels, and packing tape everywhere. But the truth is, the job was boring. My shift started at 4 in the afternoon and ended at midnight. Sometimes I had to stay late for overtime. Most nights, I would leave the office, walk 2 blocks to a small deli, get a black coffee, and then head to Canal Street Station. After a few weeks, the routine became so automatic that I would take the same route, buy the same coffee, and wait on the same platform without even thinking about it. This happened near the end of November. It was already pretty cold. That New York kind of cold that gets inside your jacket no matter what you wear. That day, we had an urgent hospital print order come in. Some records had to be prepared for same-night shipment. The job itself was simple, but the volume was heavy. I ended up staying late. When I left the building, it was around 12:35. Normally, I was at the station by 12:10. I went to the deli. The guy at the counter saw me, didn't ask anything, and just made my black coffee like usual. I tapped my card, grabbed the cup, and walked toward the station. Canal Street Station was almost empty at that hour. There was a woman asleep on a bench, a young guy standing against the wall with headphones on, and near the far end of the platform, there was an old man, brown overcoat, flat cap, white stubble. I don't usually pay much attention to people, but I noticed him because he kept looking at me. He wasn't exactly staring. He would look at me for a few seconds, then look away. A little later, he would look again. I looked away. The train came. The middle cars had some loud people inside. 2 or 3 of them looked drunk. I just wanted to get home, so I walked toward the last car. There was only one man sitting inside. Black hoodie, head down, hands in his lap. I couldn't see his face clearly. Near his feet, there was an old black work bag, the kind a construction worker or maintenance worker might carry every day. I sat on the opposite side, a few seats away from him. The train started moving. I drank my coffee and checked a few emails on my phone. I was tired. I had been working overtime for the past few weeks. I kept telling myself not to fall asleep before DeKalb Avenue, but the heater was on. The rhythm of the train got slow and steady, and I fell asleep. I don't know how long I was out. When I opened my eyes, the announcement was playing. Next stop, DeKalb Avenue. I sat up quickly. At first, I thought I had only been asleep for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Then I looked across from me. The man in the hoodie was still sitting there. His head was still down. Then I looked at the floor. The work bag was now on my side, about a foot away from my shoes. At first, I thought maybe it had slid toward me when the train moved. I moved my foot away and looked at the man. "Excuse me," I said. "Your bag." He didn't answer. I said it a little louder. "Sir, your bag is over here." This time he lifted his head. Because of the hoodie, I still couldn't see his full face, just part of his nose and mouth. In a completely normal voice, he said, "It's not mine." That felt strange. When I got on the train, the bag had been right next to his feet. I said, "It was next to you." He looked at me for a few seconds. Then he said, "No, that's yours." The train was starting to slow down as it pulled into the station. The man leaned forward a little. For a second, I thought he might have smiled, but his voice stayed calm. Then he said, "Finn, right?" I froze. I still had the coffee cup in my hand. I remember the lid bending a little because I was gripping it too hard. Then he said, "Green Avenue, 4th floor, 4B. Everything inside me stopped for a second. I couldn't say anything. Not, "Who are you?" Not, "How do you know that?" Nothing. The doors opened. I got up immediately and stepped onto the platform. I stood there and looked back inside the train. The man was still sitting in the same place. The bag was still on the floor near the seat where I had been sitting. The doors closed. The train pulled away. I just stood on the platform. My hands were shaking. And honestly, I was scared in a way I hadn't felt before. That night, I didn't take the next train. I didn't want to be underground anymore. I left the station and started walking home. In a normal situation, the walk would have taken 10 or 15 minutes, but that night, every block felt longer than it should have. I kept looking behind me. Every time, the sidewalk was empty, but the feeling didn't go away. When I got home, I double-locked the door. I put the chain on. I turned on the living room light. Leah wasn't home. I stood in the kitchen and drank water for a while. My phone was on the table. Around 2:20 a.m. it vibrated. Unknown number. The message only said, "You fell asleep in the last car, didn't you?" I stared at the screen. Then I blocked the number. I thought about calling the police, but then I stopped. What was I supposed to say? That a man on the subway knew my name and address? That there was a bag near me that wasn't mine? That an unknown number sent me a message? What proof did I really have? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went to work and tried to act normal, but Carla noticed. Carla was my supervisor. She was strict, but she wasn't unfair. She saw me near the coffee machine and asked, "You okay?" I just said, "Didn't sleep well." I didn't tell her what happened. I knew she would tell me to file a police report or talk to security, but I wasn't even sure how to explain it myself. For the next week, I changed my routine. I didn't sit in the last car anymore. Sometimes I waited longer on the platform until a more crowded car came. Sometimes I changed routes for no real reason. Sometimes I walked out of the station and considered getting a rideshare, then saw the price and canceled it. I kept telling myself it was probably just a weird coincidence. In New York, especially late at night, you meet strange people. But a few days later, strange things started happening at work. One night, near the end of my shift, a page suddenly came out of one of the printers. The page was almost blank. In the top left corner, there were only 2 words: last car. At first, I thought it was an old test file or some kind of system glitch. But when I checked the print log, there was no active job. I looked at the page for a few seconds. Then I folded it and threw it in the trash. I told myself it was probably some stupid prank from a coworker. But at that time, the only people on the production floor were me and Carla was in the front office. After that, I started noticing things at home too. I would come home and the kitchen chair would be slightly moved. The window blinds would be half open, even though I remembered closing them before leaving. One time, the bathroom light was on, and I was almost sure I had turned it off. I mentioned it casually to Leah. She said, "I was home in the afternoon. Maybe I did it." That was possible, so I tried to ignore it. But inside, I wasn't normal anymore. At night, I checked the door lock 2 or 3 times. Unknown calls started coming in. If I picked up, there would be silence. 2 seconds, then the call would disconnect. I wanted to change my number, but my job, bank, accounts, and delivery apps were all connected to it. So I just started ignoring unknown calls. Then one night, I checked my phone's location history. I only wanted to see what time I left DeKalb that night. I remembered getting off the train, leaving the station, and walking home. But the timeline wasn't clean. Some points were missing. In some places, my phone's location seemed to move along the subway line. Canal Street, Atlantic Avenue. Then a weird ping on the Manhattan side. Then back to Brooklyn. I know underground GPS isn't accurate. Sometimes phones pick up the wrong location. But what bothered me was that some of the stops matched the route that train could have taken. And I had no memory of those stops. I started searching online about that night. The date, Canal Street, subway, unattended bag, police, black work bag. At first, I didn't find much. Then I found a small update on a local news site. It wasn't a long article, just a few lines. A suspicious unattended bag had been reported on a late-night train. The emergency intercom had been used. An elderly passenger had received medical attention on the platform. Police had recovered the bag. What was inside the bag was never made public. My name wasn't in the article, but the date was the same. As soon as I read that line, I remembered something faint. An old man's voice. "Kid, wake up." Then someone's hand on my shoulder. Then me standing near the emergency button. Or maybe I pressed it. Or maybe someone else did. I still don't know for sure. I turned off my phone. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called in sick and went straight to the police station. I thought the officer would listen, write something down, and then set it aside. But when I mentioned the unattended bag, he stopped typing. He looked at me and asked, "Where do you work?" I told him the company name. His face didn't really change, but his body language did. Then he asked, "Do you handle hospital files there?" I said, "Sometimes." He just nodded and called another officer over. After that, everything started moving fast. An audit started at the office. Production logs were checked. Badge scans were checked. Camera footage was pulled. I was questioned too. 2 days later, Carla pulled me aside and said only one thing. Some hospital files were printed twice. They weren't supposed to be. I asked, "By who?" She didn't answer. She only said, "Don't talk about this on the floor." That same night, I got a photo from an unknown number. It was a picture of the entrance to my apartment building, nighttime. The yellow reflection from the streetlight was on the glass door. The message said, "You should have left it alone." This time, I showed the police directly. They told me not to stay with Leah for a few days, so I moved to a friend's couch. At work, everyone acted like nothing was happening, but everyone knew something was happening. Then Luis disappeared. Luis was our night guard. He was a quiet guy. Usually, he just sat at the front desk and didn't talk much. One day, he didn't show up for his shift. Then, he didn't show up the next day either. The company opened his locker. I was never given the full details, but Carla told me that some printed pages were found inside Luis's locker. My address was on them. My shift schedule was on them. There was also a photo of my building entrance. Police also recovered a black work bag, the same type of bag. A few days later, police arrested Luis in New Jersey. I never got the full report. All I really understood was that he wasn't working alone. Patient records had been getting printed from the office without authorization. Later, I found out that some of those records were being used for fraud and blackmail. Files were being taken out of the office and handed off to someone on the subway, late at night, in a crowded city, while everyone was busy minding their own business. Later, one officer told me only this: "That bag wasn't meant for you." I asked, "Then who was it for?" He didn't answer. My guess is this: that night the bag was supposed to go to someone else. I fell asleep in the last car. The old man noticed something. The handoff got messed up, and when I got caught in the middle of it, they tried to scare me into staying quiet. But there are still things I don't understand. Who was the man in the hoodie? How did he know my name and address? Did the old man actually save me? Or was he part of it too? And the most disturbing thing is that the police never told me what was inside that bag. I moved out of New York a few months later. The official reason was that I needed a change. The real reason was that every time I stood on a subway platform, I felt like someone was watching me. Even now, if I get a call from an unknown number, I don't answer it. And if I ever see an unattended bag near me on a train, a bus, or in a waiting room, I get up and walk away, without thinking, without touching it. Because one thing I learned that night is this: sometimes the thing left next to you wasn't meant for you. But once it's there, you become part of it anyway.